Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani announces that his Reconstruction and Development Coalition has won the most seats in the country's parliamentary elections. The declaration follows the release of preliminary results by the Independent High Electoral Commission, confirming that the coalition garnered the largest number of votes in the contest for Iraq's 329-seat parliament. The announcement comes one day after polling stations closed across the country. The electoral process recorded a turnout of 56.11%, a level described by the Commission as remarkable compared to previous years. This figure stands in contrast to the 41% turnout recorded during the last parliamentary elections in 2021. The increase occurred despite the boycott led by Shia figure Muqtada al-Sadr and despite the widespread frustration among many Iraqis who had expressed doubts that the elections would bring significant change, particularly due to the absence of new or competitive candidates. Following the release of initial results, hundreds of supporters of Mohammed Shia al-Sudani gathered in Tahrir Square in central Baghdad. They waved Iraqi flags and set off fireworks as they awaited further confirmation of their coalition's performance. These gatherings unfolded throughout the day, marking the public response to the preliminary tallies. At the centre of the day's developments, Mohammed Shia al-Sudani delivered remarks noting the early indications of victory. In his 8-second statement, he affirmed his coalition's standing following the Commission's release of the figures. His message was issued as part of ongoing political discussions that now move into a new phase involving negotiations to select a Prime Minister. These consultations take place amid internal political challenges and competing pressures from both the United States and Iran. The Commission's preliminary results highlighted voter participation levels and confirmed the distribution of early vote counts across the competing political blocs. The announcement underscored the heightened engagement seen in this cycle compared to earlier years. The Commission provided its update shortly after the close of voting stations nationwide, outlining the status of vote tabulation and the initial outcome signals for leading coalitions. Supporters in Baghdad continued their presence throughout the day near Tahrir Square, marking the moment with displays of national symbols and celebratory gestures. These gatherings accompanied the political statements and the release of official figures, forming part of the public reaction to the evolving electoral landscape. The timeline began with morning activity in the capital as early reports circulated about expected turnout levels. By the time the Commission released its preliminary figures, political groups and observers had shifted their attention to the implications for the next government formation process. The Reconstruction and Development Coalition's position at the top of the early vote count set the stage for coalition negotiations, which Iraqi political processes require before selecting a prime minister. Throughout the day, sequences of participation announcements continued. The updates included confirmations of the turnout percentage, references to the number of seats in Parliament, and acknowledgements of the political climate in which the elections were held. Repeated emphasis was placed on the sharp rise in participation when compared with the previous cycle. The context of internal challenges remained present in public commentary. These challenges include the absence of several new political contenders and the persistent sentiment among some Iraqis that electoral outcomes may not translate into tangible improvements. The document notes that this sentiment stemmed from frustration regarding the lack of substantive political alternatives. Despite this environment, the turnout figure surpassed expectations and marked a significant shift from the previous election. Later in the day, additional sequences of public activity occurred in Baghdad. The celebrants continued to gather across time intervals, maintaining their presence in the square. These gatherings reflected extended support for the coalition and continued acknowledgement of the preliminary results. As night approached, the atmosphere remained centred on the facts of the election. The Commission's announcement provided the key authoritative reference for political actors, confirming the Reconstruction and Development Coalition's early lead and reinforcing the next steps in the constitutional process. These steps include consultations among various political blocs, the formal verification of results, and the eventual nomination of a prime minister. The celebrations in Baghdad persisted during the evening, with supporters again displaying flags and marking the moment through coordinated public expressions. These moments correspond to multiple time periods referenced in the document, each segment indicating the sustained presence of participants. Amid these public gatherings, references to pressures from the United States and Iran were acknowledged within the broader political context. These cross-regional influences shape the environment in which negotiations occur, creating a complex landscape for the coalition as it moves into government formation discussions. The document notes that such pressures contribute to the internal political challenges already facing the process. The turnout data released by the Commission remains a central element in the day's narrative. At 56.11%, the figure stands as one of the most notable outcomes reported, signalling a level of engagement that distinguishes this election from the one held 4 years prior. With 329 parliamentary seats at stake, political actors immediately shifted to analyse the implications of the results as they prepared for the negotiation phase. Supporters continued their activities in central Baghdad, marking the developments by waving the national flag and observing the unfolding political process. Their gatherings, repeated across the day's intervals, reflect the significance of the preliminary results for those aligned with the Reconstruction and Development Coalition. As updates circulated, political commentary emphasised the initial nature of the results. The Commission's figures signalled early trends but were not yet final. Nonetheless, they provided sufficient confirmation for Mohammed Shia al-Sudani to assert his coalition's position. His statement reaffirmed confidence in the numbers while acknowledging that the official tally would determine subsequent procedural steps. Throughout the coverage, the chronology of announcements and public reactions remained consistent. The document outlines the timeline from the Commission's release through the Prime Minister's statement and into the series of public responses in Baghdad. Each development followed the pattern established by Iraq's electoral framework, with preliminary results serving as the basis for early political positioning. The celebrations in Tahrir Square, referenced repeatedly in the document, continued to symbolise the coalition's support base as the day progressed. The activities documented show sustained engagement by supporters over multiple time periods, aligning with the ongoing political announcements. Simultaneously, the mention of negotiations highlights the procedural stage that follows preliminary results. As indicated, the process of selecting a prime minister requires agreements among multiple political blocs, often involving extended discussions. The presence of internal political challenges and cross-border pressures forms part of the environment in which these negotiations will be conducted. The absence of key political actors, such as Muqtada al-Sadr, contributed to the complexity of the election. His boycott of the polls marked a significant departure from previous years. Despite this, the turnout rose substantially, signalling a notable shift in voter participation patterns. The day's events also underlined the theme of public frustration referenced in the document. Many Iraqis had questioned whether the election would produce meaningful change due to the limited number of new or competitive candidates. This sentiment formed part of the electoral backdrop and shaped expectations before the release of the turnout figures. As the day drew to a close, the sequence of celebrations continued in Baghdad. Multiple intervals recorded the presence of supporters aligning with the evolving political developments. Each segment of activity, as noted, corresponded with the documentation of preliminary results and the responses they generated. In summary, the document outlines the progression of the release of preliminary results by the Independent High Electoral Commission, the confirmation that the Reconstruction and Development Coalition won the most votes, the statement issued by Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, the turnout figure of 56.11%, the historical comparison to the 2021 elections, the political backdrop, including boycotts and voter frustration, the celebratory gatherings in Tahrir Square, and the initiation of complex negotiations to select a prime minister amid internal challenges and competing pressures from the United States and Iran. The current status is that Iraq's preliminary election results place the Reconstruction and Development Coalition in the lead, with formal negotiations now underway to determine the country's next prime minister.